So, folks, before I bring my guest in, I think it's only fair that we talk about what happened to great writer of our time, Paul Krugman, as he was confronted. Now, we all know how much corporate media is filled with a bunch of jagoffs. So, first of all, this is a video from Jose Vega, and this is about 2 minutes and 49 seconds. So, let's go ahead and play this in its entirety.
Okay. Uh-oh, Nobel Prize-winning economist here to tell us how great the economy is. I certainly wonder how the residents of Asheville, North Carolina must be feeling right now with no access to power or water or communication with the outside world. I wonder how enthusiastic they are about the economy right now. I wonder how enthusiastic the residents of the South Bronx must be feeling about the economy. Hey, maybe North Carolina should rename itself Israel so it'll get $20 billion in aid. Or maybe Ukraine so it can get $300 billion in aid. Maybe the South Bronx should do the same thing. I mean, I'm sure the economy is great for smug liberals like yourself who make $5 million and are worth $5 million. I'm sure the economy must be great for all you smug journalists, economists. All of you must be having a great time with the economy when most people can't even pay for basic necessities, for people who are getting evicted because they can't pay their rent. Because over in the South Bronx, just a few miles away from here, there are portions of buildings that are literally...
I'm loving the guy with the shirt Fred on. I'm gonna call him Fred. Anytime somebody gets in front of any kind of interrupter, I'm gonna call him a Fred. That's gonna be in the new lexicon for our dictionary.
Collapsing, and I'm supposed to give a shit about the stock market. You want to know why the presidential election is tied right now? Because our money is being sent to Israel and Ukraine so that they can continue to bomb innocent women and children. You think that's a great economy? I'm sure Israel, with their free healthcare, is having a great time with American taxpayer money. Hey, is anyone here going to talk about the fact that we could be in war with Iran in a few days? Or do we need to focus on the S&P 500? Is that what actually matters? The S&P 500, when most people may not even be alive here in a few days, just because we're on the verge of nuclear war. Hey, listen to me, Mr. Krugman. Your degree is worthless. You might as well use it as paperweight because it means nothing. I hope you enjoy the dead children that the economy is powering. Our economy is definitely very powerful right now. All that stock market money goes to the military complex so that more innocent women and children are dead. And fuck off with the New York Times, the liberal apologists for war and genocide. You all fucking suck. People need to wake up right now, and we need to have peace. We can work with China. We can work with Russia. We don't need to start war with Iran. All right, I'm good. We're good.
All right, hey, how dare you interrupt the liberals while they're having their jerk off session? What's wrong with you, Jose? Welcome to the show. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of things I want to talk to you too, as well, update for your campaign and everything else. But first of all, what the hell happened? How did this all get started? How did you know that good old Paulie was going to show up? And what do you think about your new friend Fred?
Oh man. Okay. Well, there's a lot there to respond to. What do I think of my new friend Fred? He kept trying to grab my phone. I don't know what that was about. There was a point. I think I pissed him off when I said something about, or do we need to worry about the S&P 500? And then he just tried to just snatch the phone from my hand. He was totally crazy. And these people are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because moments before the intervention, or before they even started, I asked for a pen because they gave me an index card and they said, if you want to ask a question, here's an index card. And there's only 15 minutes for questions, but maybe yours will be selected. Everyone around me was really nice, and Fred was bantering with me back and forth about rental fees for the pen or something. So I felt hey, I thought we were cool, I thought we were bros, and all of a sudden he's trying to
Okay, all right. What was the initial subject all about though, for that conference that Paul Krugman was hosting or being part of that panel about? What was it about? Again, how we need to go to war and why our economy is great?
It wasn't even why we need to go to war. It was why do people think our economy sucks right now? That's what it was. So the official event was like the perceptions of the economy and how it'll influence the election. And before Krugman spoke, the introduction and the moderator were saying, our GDP is just doing so great. The stock market is great, and usually that would mean that the incumbent would win. But why isn't that happening this year? Why don't people realize that the economy is great right now? It's like, great for who? Who is the economy great for? Not for me, not for the people of the South Bronx. And that's why I also brought up North Carolina, because they just got hit with this disaster. And one thing I had meant to also bring up too, which it slipped my mind, was the residents of Hawaii who got $700 from FEMA. Only $700.
Well, actually, in regards to that, it was more of the households. It wasn't just individuals. It was people who could confirm to have households. And again, even that, a lot of them didn't even get that $700, or if they did, it quickly evaporated. So, I mean, it wasn't individuals; it was households. Of course, some things did vary depending on the person or their living situation. So, I mean, there's a lot of complexity into that $700, which again, mind you, by the way, no matter how we talk about it, I mean, it's still horrific because the people of Lahaina are still suffering and still displaced. And you have venture capitalists, vulture capitalists, to be more precise, flying in, swooping in, displacing all those people. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, I appreciate that clarification, because it only shows like how much of a ghoul Paul Krugman and these other quote unquote economists are, that they can go up to these places and say, no, the economy is great. Meanwhile, they live in New York City, where it is a tale of two cities. Just go a few miles up the road into the Bronx, like I said in the intervention, and there are buildings that are literally collapsing right now. So, I'm supposed to believe the economy is so great, but most people, like the 35% of people in my district live underneath the poverty line. But the economy is so great. And, what the residents of Palestine, Ohio, what happened to them, right? Our trains are crashing into each other. Like, there's so many different kinds of infrastructure related problems in the country. Oh, but wait a minute. There was this, one of my favorite jokes is, excuse me, sir. It's like a guy going up to the president and saying, like, this was if Marvel was real, maybe you've seen talk, right? And the guy's like, excuse me, Mr. President, but Dr. Doom is about to blow up Manhattan right now, and if we don't call the Avengers, something's gonna go bad. And the president says, yeah, okay, send $50 billion to Israel right now. So yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. So what we are seeing though is this huge amount of denial by corporate media. And see, the thing is, we are witnessing, the absolute collapse of our infrastructure. I mean, there was a explosion that took place in Georgia in which chemicals such as chlorine and so much more was being exposed to the people. Now, again, while the fire has been controlled, the long-term consequences of said explosion from those chemicals, we don't know fully yet. But even adding on to that disaster, Georgia was hit with the Hurricane Helene, and then there was also Florida and North Carolina. Infrastructure is falling apart, and I've been seeing everyone in independent media talking about how communities have been displaced, how there's lack of clean drinking water. I mean, we're witnessing a failure on every point in time, and it does call into question, what should people do to really bring awareness what's happening to their local communities, because our money is being wasted on all these foreign wars, and yet there doesn't seem to be a plan in regards to really help out communities, local communities, the state itself, in regards to uplifting and protecting the people while our infrastructure is falling apart. Was any of that being brought up before you interrupted Paul Krugman?
No, and I do want to be clear. There was maybe about 15 minutes. I gave them a grace period of 15 minutes to just kind of listen into the topic and see if there was anything I wanted to kind of touch on specifically that I thought could be broad. No, absolutely not. It was just they were saying, well, maybe people think the economy is bad right now because burgers cost 20% more than they did 5 years ago. And lots of people, this is a real thing. Right? People believe, right, that people measure the economy by how much a burger costs, and that because the price of a burger went up 20%. That must be why people think the economy is bad, as opposed to the fact that people can't pay for their basic fucking necessities. People are getting evicted. They can't pay their rent or groceries, and some people can't even pay for their medications. Some people can't even pay their debt, you know. And then look, if you like me, if you get 3 fucking credit cards and you tap them all out, and then the government will start to garnish your checks on behalf of these card companies because you're forced to use them because otherwise you can't make a living, right? You know, look, and like I understand the plight of the people who live in my district who are probably doing all that or having to fake their social security numbers so the government doesn't garnish their checks. I understand it all. And my plea to the people in quote unquote local communities, because I don't believe my district and I don't believe my community begins or ends in an arbitrary congressional district line. It just doesn't.
Right.
Because what affects one of us affects all of us. And we could all be drafted into war with Iran tomorrow. You know, I was scared to be honest with you, Kit. I woke up yesterday and I saw this thing with Iran and they're striking down missiles on Israel. Now, thankfully, I got a report this morning that they didn't indiscriminately do it. They were targeting legitimate military infrastructure, and I don't think a single Israeli citizen died. I could be wrong about that, but you know,
yeah. Let's again wait for these reports. And look, folks, you know, everybody gave this warning. Everybody on the left and on the right, those who are anti-war, okay, or either that don't want to be involved in intervention, because I know that there's varying ways in which libertarians, conservatives, liberals, and progressives view anti-intervention and anti-war. But you know, as soon as the war in Gaza began to kick off, but dare I say it, even before then was the war in Ukraine, I think a lot of us were giving this warning of the fact that we are tiptoeing closer to World War III, and already we're seeing escalation taking place. We're seeing the war in Ukraine expand into Russian territory as well, when clearly there should be talks for diplomacy. We're seeing, you know, Israel hit Lebanon, hit Iran. Iran is retaliating back, and of course, Lebanon threatening to hit back. And then, of course, there's the continuous starvation, destruction, and ruthless murder of you know, civilians in Gaza, in the enclave, in the Gaza enclave. And then, of course, you see Israel also expanding into the West Bank. So, you know, a rational person will see, well, this is the beginning of a global conflict, and the global superpower, being the United States, isn't really doing anything at all except giving more money to Ukraine, more money to Israel, and all the while here in the United States, especially in East Coast states and southern states that were hit by Hurricane Helena, you got chemical spills. There's no money for the people. We have money for war, but no money for the people. And we gave this warning even before then, even before the invasion. You know, people were saying that this is a disaster and this is a system that's falling apart. So what I want to ask you is, you know, especially now that we are ending this election cycle, you know, what are your overall thoughts in regards to the political mood and the environment, especially in the district that you're running in right now?
Well, that's a look. I think it's important that people kind of keep a global outlook, and we have to think of ourselves as world citizens. What do I mean by that? I don't mean like these crazy people who go around saying the Constitution doesn't apply to me because I'm a world citizen. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. What I mean to say is, here's a good example, especially with my district, right? So we're talking about Richie Torres, who's the APAC Wunderkind. And I found something out. In my district, there's this school called SAR Academy, or SAR Academy. And SAR Academy has raised money for IDF soldiers. They bring in delegates. They've sponsored trips for Yoav Gallant to come into the Bronx, or for Richie Torres to go see Yoav Gallant. You know, there's like a strong tie between this school and my district, which is, and this school's up in Riverdale, of course. And we've been investigating, and we're coming out with an expose, hopefully within the next week and a half or so, that the Bronx needs to know. The people who give money to this school are some of the biggest scum lords and slum lords of the Bronx and all of New York City, too, actually. There's a big corporation called Chestnut Holdings, which is owned by a family. They give money to this academy, and they've also given the maximum amount they can give to Richie Torres every election cycle as well. And here's the thing. Richie Torres ran on a housing platform saying he wanted to go after the slumlords. Now, why do I bring this up in relation to my local community, in relation to the economy, in relation to the elections as a whole? Because every single congressman, maybe not Thomas Massey, but every single congressman has some kind of apparatus like this that there's connected in some way or another to the
A
mafia.
babysitter. Yeah,
Yeah,
or a handler or an APAC babysitter. That's what Thomas Massey said to Tucker Carlson.
right. And there's this whole apparatus that exists in the Bronx. This is the thing that people don't understand about the Bronx, right? If you want to fix the Bronx, you actually have to get rid of the foreign influence that's there, because the Bronx is a colonized space. Okay. There is Israeli foreign interference in the Bronx through Riverdale. I believe Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL owns a home in Riverdale. And all of the major power players, like the local city councilman, people keep bringing up this guy Dinowitz to me. They are all getting funding from the slumlords who are connected directly to, in one way or another, the Israel lobby, to the IDF or the IOF, and who sponsor trips for Yoav Gallant to go and meet with Richie Torres, or for Richie Torres to go and show what a loyal lapdog he is to Israel. That is the apparatus right now that is upholding and maintaining Bronx local politics. Every single politician, every single one, and I know what I'm saying, that means Jamal Bowman, that means AOC, is being propped up or allowed to be there because of the Israeli lobby. I'm not kidding when I say this. This is actually what is going on. We've uncovered this. And so when people try to tell me, well, wait a minute, why don't you run local, or why don't you think local? I am, by telling people the truth, that we are currently an occupied territory. New York 15th is an occupied territory, just like New York 1 through 30. All the congressional districts are occupied territory right now. There is no government. There is nobody actually elected that was that was elected by people. And it's a scary thing to realize, but it's something that I'm up against. And that is what I have uncovered, and that's the truth that people don't want to admit. They want to go after one person or another. No. It's not about the person who's in charge. Like Richie Torres, when I say he's an empty suit, I genuinely mean it. Okay.
Now,
yeah.
Go. I want you to finish your thought, because I know your time is running short here, and I want to make sure we at least, because there's just one question in particular I do want to ask before we do push forward. But go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just that's pretty much it. It's like people don't want to, and our government makes a whole thing about how we have to fight the Russian influence and the Chinese influence in our elections, but there is very clear foreign interference in almost all of our congressional races. I think over 300 congressmen have taken some money from AIPAC in one way or another. Like, my point is that it goes deeper than AIPAC, because AIPAC is the front for the Israeli lobby and the Israeli government to continue to influence its politics. And so I'm not trying to this is not me making like, Israel controls all of our politics and all of our government. No, that is like one layer of the corruption. Like, it really is just super, super deep. And so, I would just ask people to do this research themselves. Now, my final thoughts on like the election as a whole, and what I I just kind of had to get that out of the way, and what I've been looking into. And again, an expose will hopefully be coming out soon. My thoughts on the election as a whole, and we are in a pretty scary time right now, where I don't think either either presidential candidate will get us into a time of peace. Whether if we go with Donald Trump, we just get war with Iran. If we go with Kamala Harris, Israel will continue to do what it's doing, and Ukraine will be the conduit towards World War III. And I really urge and stress people to just do what I did and intervene in the way that I do, because that's something that can raise the consciousness of people right now. And that is a way of declaring our independence. And I genuinely believe if 435 people just do what I did, we can actually have some semblance of a government again.
Ideally, I would like to see that happen. Unfortunately, I fear that we are on the decline, much like the Roman Empire. And when a nation gets too corrupt, or an empire gets too corrupt, the violent phenomenon is that it usually collapses within its own weight. And the thing is, what's always ignored, especially with these mighty empires of antiquity, what they all have in common is that they ignore the people. So I think this is a perfect campaign question to ask, and final question to ask in reality is, in regards to local and domestic policies, you are facing off against a neoliberal corporate Democrat. What separates you from your opponent in regards to local domestic issues impacting the congressional district that you're running in? Because I think right now, what's making people lose face is that it's very important that we do talk about these wars, because World War III is a very real thing, and I don't think I've ever seen it this close. I don't think any of us have ever seen it this close to becoming a reality. And when that happens, that's our end. But before we talk about the end, I think we should at least talk about uplifting the people and maybe restoring faith in the people. Because if somebody sticks their neck out for the people, then maybe the people will actually start getting braver and start stepping forward. So domestically, what's separating you from your opponent? Because election night is just a few weeks away, and then 2024 will be over sometime around in December, at the last day of December, to be more precise, the 31st. So take it away, Jose.
No, it's actually a very easy question to answer, because maybe people should come out with me in the streets and see how I talk to the citizens and talk to the residents. People have to understand that I know what it means to project myself on social media when I have people from around the world who follow me, right? Because there's two different kinds of interventions that I'm trying to do in the Bronx and in the world right now. Of course, I'm running against corporate shill Richie Torres, who does not have the best interests of the people in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to people in the Bronx all the time, and one of the plans that we've come up with that people seem to agree on is that if an apartment that is no more than 500 square feet, that there should be a cap that you can only charge $750 a month for it. And if it's 1,000 square feet, that you should only be able to charge no more than $1,250 for a one-bedroom apartment. And then you just kind of follow it up the chain, basically, that there should be caps on rental agreements so that, speculation can't just be driven out of control. One of the things that tends to uplift people when I talk to them about, the situation going on is that we have an alternative, right? One of the great things is that I actually have a plan that can fix these things by rebuilding the South Bronx and putting people to work in the South Bronx to rebuild it. So the South Bronx has one of the worst infrastructure layouts of the 21st century. Highways have been built that have completely crushed and destroyed houses and neighborhoods, and all of New York. This is true of all of New York City too. One of the things that we want to implement is a cross Bronx train platform. So, in New York City, and I'm going to get into New York City a little bit, we have up and down trains, and we also have east to west trains in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. But there is no train line that can take you from the Bronx to Queens to Brooklyn. There is no train line that can take you across the Bronx, only up and down the Bronx. It's terrible. And as a result, people are packed like sardines into these train systems. There's no train system that goes across Fordham Road. That's also really bad. And on the housing question, most people can't even start families here, because it's like, where do you take your girlfriend when you have like 3 or 4 different roommates, or you're sharing a room with somebody because the economy is so bad? People can't actually start families. And I found this out recently, that developers are building apartments in such a way that they are unappealing to stay in, right? They don't want people to actually be in their apartments all day, because they want you to be out in New York buying things, being a part of the commerce economy. It is diabolical what they are doing. And what this means is that we need to build new housing and rebuild housing. We also need to take care of our elderly as well. We need to have an ability for them through Medicare for all, that they don't have to worry about their medical bills, and also transportation as well. My grandfather, before he passed away, he had leukemia, and it was a real hassle on us, because we had to, I had to leave my job so that I could take care of him and take him to his appointments. They shouldn't have to be worrying about that. And you can actually just implement these policies, these common sense policies like Medicare for all, that would just fix those very basic things. But overall, what will bring the South Bronx back and what will inspire people to want to be alive, because that's part of the problem is that most people are depressed because there's no future, is you have to give people a sense of hope that they are building something that they can be proud of, that they can leave for their, generations to come after them. And the way to do that is through my program, which is a modern day CCC camp, a modern day program where you give people training who are 18 to 26 years old, who are uneducated and unskilled, and you give them an education and you give them a skill like welding or construction or engineering, and you say to them, you are going to build and rebuild your neighborhood. You are going to build the hospitals that we shut down. You are going to build the schools that we shut down. You are going to build the heating system or rebuild a heating system that has failed that building for the last 40 to 50 years. And I don't believe this has to be done state by state. I'm not running for a state position. I'm running for a federal position. And the reason I'm running for a federal position is because it'll start in the Bronx. The Bronx will lead the way forward for the renaissance of the United States. But it has to be implemented everywhere in the country because my community does not begin or end in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, all right. And now, all right, I do wish you all the best for your campaign, and I do hope that you running as an independent can make an impact and at least shake the foundations of at least the Democratic machine in New York State. We all know that third parties and independents face an uphill battle. But before we do end this, there actually is a response. And while this might be controversial, turns out old Paulie had some words to say. Last night at CUNY event about perceptions of the economy, we had a guy yelling about Biden refusing to help Helene victims who had to be escorted out. So Trump's lies have gone viral. Looks like you and Paul have a long-lasting friendship. I'm looking forward to you guys actually having a sit-down.
Yeah, well, if he wants to, I'm more than happy to, but I don't see that happening. You know what we should do? We should do a talk on how great the economy is and for the people who know the New York City, we should do it on the corner of 138th, no, on the corner of 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. Okay, Robert Clemente Park, where there's just people laid out and splayed out. You don't even know if they're dead or if they're just really high. And we should go there and talk about how great the economy is. Right in the heart of my district, where Richie Torres never steps foot in, where I go and I knock on the doors of the projects, asking people, hey, my name is Jose Vega. You don't know who Richie Torres is. I actually give a shit about you. I'm here to tell you that Richie Torres wants you to go to war and die for him and die for Israel. I'm saying you and I can rebuild our community again if you help me get elected. And I do that, and I go door by door. Sometimes I meet people who probably I should not have knocked on their door, and that happens a lot. Okay, but that is the price. That's
the risk. That's the risk. Yeah, I've been there too, where like maybe a firearm of sorts might be pointed at you. It's not a fun thing being a canvasser because you do run into that. So
yeah, I'll share one story. We were on the phone. We called somebody, just cold calling people. They're like, "Yeah, come by the apartment, no problem." It sounded like a woman. I knock on the door. A totally beefy, buff dude comes out, completely tatted. He comes out of his apartment. I'm at the top floor of like the 20th floor of this project. He comes out. And he closes the door behind him, and he just comes like this close to me. He's like, "What do you want?" I was like, my name's Jose Vega, and I'm running for Congress, and I was here to talk to a woman named Martha. Yeah, she's sleeping right now. She don't want to talk to you. Okay,
bye.
No problem. No, but see, I started backing away, and he was like walking with me.
Good. All right. You know what? It's like, hey, man. You know what? Never mind. Never mind.
So it was quite a anyway, I do love this. I do, even though there are days I want to pull my hair out and living in poverty for this, and I really would not trade this for the world. I wouldn't. The struggle is a part of the journey, and I'm learning. I don't claim to be perfect. I really don't. Okay, I'm 26 now. My birthday was just like a couple weeks ago, and I didn't think I would have an office. I have an office now. I didn't think I would get the support I got. And, it's stressful, but all of you make it worth it. I genuinely want to thank every single person who sends comments my way, who sends me messages. I genuinely love every single one of you, because without you, I would not be getting through this without wanting to jump off a bridge every day. Right.
Right.
So thank you all, really.
All right, that's a very good note to end it on. And look, hey, Paul Krugman, if you want to have a debate with Jose Vega, make it happen in the inner city of New York. And hey, do distance, Keaton, Russell, batters up, boot up, suit up. Maybe they could be the moderators. It'll be a very interesting event to see. So, everyone, we are going to be continuing on the rest of our main show. Jose, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have an event you have to go to, so thank you so much for joining us. People, we got a big show. We're not done yet, so I'll see all of you very soon. Jose, take good care, my friend.
Thank you.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code, or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Ripe for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come from the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She's wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?